not Roxy. I just need
that dick. I'ma be the way I am until I die. And if you don't like it, die. But anyways.
And just to clear the air, I don't talk about how nobody feel about me. Keep feeling it, bitch.
On March 22nd, 2023, a passerby driving through a rural area of Washougal, Washington, noticed what appeared to be two mannequins lying near the roadside. Upon closer inspection, the bodies of a woman and a child were discovered. They were later identified as 27-year-old Meshay Melendez and her 7-year-old daughter, Layla Stewart. Both had been reported missing over a week earlier in Vancouver, Washington. The discovery initiated a homicide investigation. Autopsies confirmed that Meshay Melendez had been shot once in the head. Layla Stewart had been shot twice in the head. Layla was found unclothed from the waist down. DNA evidence indicated that she had been sexually assaulted. The primary suspect was Meshay's ex-boyfriend, 28-year-old Kirkland Warren. He was the last person seen with both victims. Prior to their disappearance, Warren had been arrested for assaulting Meshay and firing a gun into her apartment in December 2022. He was released on bail on March 3, 2023. He violated a no-contact order and was arrested again on March 8, but was again released without GPS monitoring. Court documents showed Warren scored a 31 on a domestic violence lethality assessment. The maximum on the scale is 18. Despite that, no additional precautions were taken. Authorities had knowledge of a prior murder charge against Warren in Arkansas. The road to that ditch in Washougal didn't begin on the day the bodies were found. It started earlier, with warnings, red flags, and missed opportunities.
Meshay Melendez and 7-year-old Layla Stewart went missing mid-March, last seen in a car with Warren. On March 22nd, deputies found the bodies of mother and daughter near Washougal. Investigators say both had been shot in the head. Prosecutors later charged Warren, already in jail at the time, for a parole violation with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Warren pled not guilty on both counts. Then test results of forensic evidence processed by the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab came back this week, leading to the additional charge.
This case would raise questions not just about one suspect, but about the system itself, about why certain choices were made, about what was overlooked, about whether this outcome could have been prevented, what happened between the last known sighting and March 22nd, who was involved, what was ignored. This is the case of Meshay Melendez and her 7-year-old daughter, Layla Stewart. What was found that morning was only the end. The real story begins long before that. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Meshay Melendez, 27, lived in Vancouver, Washington, with her 7-year-old daughter, Layla Stewart. She was known among her friends and community as a friendly and outgoing woman, deeply devoted to her daughter's well-being. Those close to her describe her as someone who always tried to remain optimistic, even under pressure, and who worked hard to maintain stability in her life. Meshay's family structure included her mother, Nikki, who played a strong and supportive role in both her life and Layla's. Nikki frequently helped with childcare and was actively involved in day-to-day family responsibilities. Their bond was tight, and Nikki remained closely aware of Meshay's personal struggles, especially her turbulent relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Kirkland Warren. In terms of employment, Meshay worked various customer service jobs. Although the positions were not high-paying, she consistently sought income to support herself and her child. She aimed to provide Layla with consistency, financially, emotionally, and socially, and was reportedly looking for more stable employment opportunities around the time of her death. Layla, Meshay's only child, was 7 years old at the time of her death. She was an elementary school student in the Vancouver area and was described by her teachers as curious, enthusiastic, and emotionally expressive. She enjoyed playing with animals and had a visible love for nature, often asking questions about wildlife and pets. At school, Layla performed well academically and had no disciplinary issues. Teachers noted that she was well-mannered and appeared happy in the classroom. Her bond with her mother was extremely close. They were often seen together in public, and Layla reportedly confided in her mother frequently. This mother-daughter connection was noted by neighbors, school personnel, and family friends. Layla's life was cut short while she was still forming her identity and learning about the world around her. Kirkland Warren, the ex-boyfriend of Meshay Melendez, is the primary suspect and was ultimately convicted for the deaths of both Meshay and her daughter Layla. The nature of his relationship with Meshay was described by multiple sources as volatile, marked by cycles of reconciliation followed by periods of tension, arguments, and abuse. Warren had a documented history of domestic violence, not only involving Meshay but extending to other prior relationships. He was known to law enforcement for his involvement in criminal activity across multiple states. At the time of Meshay and Layla's deaths, Warren was already facing a pending murder charge in Arkansas, where he had reportedly been involved in a separate homicide case. Despite this, he was living freely in Washington state, where he resumed his relationship with Meshay intermittently. During this period, tensions escalated. In December 2022, Warren allegedly fired a gun into Meshay's apartment, an act that led to charges related to unlawful discharge of a firearm. This event marked a critical point in their relationship and underscored the level of danger he posed. Even after this violent act, there were continued interactions between Meshay and Warren. The relationship remained unstable and unpredictable. Multiple sources, including Meshay's mother, reported that she had expressed fear regarding Warren's behavior, but had felt unsure of how to fully escape the situation. The timeline of law enforcement interaction with Warren in early 2023 revealed multiple missed opportunities to prevent the eventual tragedy. On March 2nd, 2023, Kirkland Warren was arrested for charges including assault and firearms violations stemming from his previous actions against Meshay. Law enforcement was aware of his background, including the Arkansas murder charge. Despite these red flags, Warren was released on bail the following day, March 3rd, 2023. The release raised immediate concerns among advocates and Meshay's family members. Prosecutors and judges were reportedly aware of his history, but allowed pretrial release to proceed with standard conditions. Following his release, Warren violated a no-contact order by communicating with Meshay and continuing interactions with her. He was arrested again, but in a move that shocked domestic violence advocates, he was released once more on March 8th, 2023, with no GPS monitoring, no active supervision, and no electronic tracking in place. During this period, Warren had undergone a domestic violence lethality assessment, a standard tool used to evaluate risk in domestic abuse cases. He received a score of 31 on a scale that only officially goes up to 18, indicating an extremely high threat level. Despite this alarming result, no special restrictions were placed on his movements. There was no requirement for electronic surveillance, and no enhanced protective measures were triggered by the risk score. This decision not to take additional precautions would later become a central issue in public criticism of the justice system's handling of the case. Should courts be allowed to release individuals with a pending out-of-state murder charge? Why did the system ignore a lethality score that was almost double the maximum value? What safeguards, if any, should have been put in place once Warren violated the no-contact order? Is the justice system doing enough to protect women and children in domestic violence situations? Should judges and prosecutors face consequences for decisions that lead to preventable deaths? On the morning of March 11th, 2023, 27-year-old Meshay Melendez and her 7-year-old daughter Layla Stewart were last seen alive. Surveillance footage later obtained by investigators would show the two of them leaving Meshay's Vancouver, Washington apartment in a vehicle with Meshay's ex-boyfriend, Kirkland Warren. That footage would become a critical starting point in a case that would soon evolve from a missing persons report to a double homicide investigation. By March 12th, Meshay's mother, Nikki, began raising alarms. She noted that all text communications with her daughter had stopped abruptly. There had been no phone calls, no social media activity, and most concerning, no return home by either Meshay or Layla. Nikki immediately reported her daughter and granddaughter missing. According to police reports, Nikki emphasized that this was entirely out of character for Meshay, who was known to be highly responsive and protective of her daughter. As time passed without contact, concern escalated. Family members and community volunteers began coordinating search efforts, distributing flyers, and contacting anyone who may have last seen them. Friends reported that Meshay had been trying to separate from Warren and feared for her safety. Community organizations, including domestic violence advocates, joined the outreach, calling attention to the serious risk involved in this case. By midweek, Vancouver police classified both Meshay and Layla as endangered missing persons. Their disappearance was no longer viewed as voluntary. Law enforcement publicly confirmed that Kirkland Warren had been the last known individual to see them alive. He was not in custody at that point. On the morning of March 22nd, 11 days after they were last seen, a passerby driving along Southeast Wooding Road, a remote, wooded area in rural Washougal, noticed what looked like two mannequins abandoned in a roadside ditch. The driver initially continued but turned back for a closer look. What they found were two human bodies, one adult-sized and one child-sized, both lying motionless and partially concealed by foliage. Police arrived at the scene shortly after the 911 call was placed. The bodies were later identified as Meshay Melendez and Layla Stewart. Both had been fatally shot. Meshay suffered a single gunshot wound to the head, consistent with execution-style killing. Layla had been shot twice in the head. According to Clark County Medical Examiner, Layla was also found partially unclothed from the waist down, and signs of sexual assault were confirmed through subsequent forensic analysis. The location where the bodies were found was heavily wooded, isolated, and far from any main road or populated area. The condition of the bodies and the nature of the injuries led investigators to conclude that the murders had occurred elsewhere and the bodies had been transported and dumped at that location days earlier. With the confirmation of the victims' identities, the case immediately shifted from a missing persons investigation to a double homicide. Investigators began reconstructing the timeline using digital evidence, surveillance footage, and forensic examination. The first key piece of evidence came from surveillance video, which showed Kirkland Warren leaving Meshay's apartment with her and Layla on the morning of March 11th. That footage marked the last known sighting of either victim alive. Police tracked Warren's movements by examining his cell phone data and vehicle GPS records, which placed him in the Washougal area, specifically near Southeast Wooding Road, around the suspected time the bodies were believed to have been dumped. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Warren's vehicle, a key development in the case. Forensic technicians found traces of blood, hair, and clothing fibers matching both Meshay and Layla inside the vehicle. Luminol testing revealed blood patterns that had been partially wiped clean, suggesting an attempt to cover up the crime scene within the car. The most damning evidence emerged from DNA testing. Forensic labs confirmed that DNA found on Layla's body, including evidence of sexual assault, matched Kirkland Warren. This forensic link removed any ambiguity regarding Warren's involvement in the killings and established a basis for multiple felony charges, including child molestation. Police also analyzed Warren's phone search history, uncovering disturbing search terms in the days leading up to and following the disappearance. These included phrases such as how to dispose of bodies, how long does DNA last, and can you track a body after death? These searches provided clear indications of premeditation. Additional witness statements revealed a pattern of controlling and abusive behavior from Warren. Friends and family testified that Warren had threatened Meshay in the past and had recently assaulted her. Despite these reports, he had been released from jail twice within the same month prior to the murders, including once for violating a no-contact order with Meshay. One of the most critical failures highlighted by investigators was the fact that Warren had been previously charged with murder in Arkansas, a case still pending at the time he was released in Washington. Despite the severity of his criminal history and a domestic violence lethality risk score of 31, a number nearly double the maximum scale used to assess threat levels, he had not been ordered to wear a GPS monitor upon his release. Why wasn't Warren kept in custody despite his violent record and lethality risk score? Should GPS monitoring be mandatory for all high-risk domestic violence offenders? How should courts handle defendants with pending murder charges in another state? Could earlier intervention by law enforcement or the courts have saved Meshay and Layla? What reforms are necessary to prevent similar failures in future domestic violence cases? The media spotlight intensified after Warren was arrested and charged. News reports and investigative articles framed the case as a clear example of a systemic failure. Despite multiple red flags, Warren was released on bail twice in March 2023, once after being arrested for assaulting Meshay and violating protection order, and again after being found in her presence against court orders. One major point of criticism came from Warren's lethality risk score. He scored a 31 on the domestic violence lethality assessment, an alarming number given that the tool maxes out at 18. Despite this, he was released without GPS monitoring, raising immediate concerns about how the system assesses and manages high-risk individuals. Domestic violence organizations, such as the YWCA Clark County, raised serious concerns about the effectiveness of court oversight. They pointed out that risk assessments and protective orders are meaningless if judges and prosecutors do not act decisively based on that information. According to a statement released by the YWCA, the decision to release Warren showed a disregard for warning signs and a failure to prioritize the safety of victims. Legal experts and advocates began to question the judges and prosecutors involved. The prosecutorial decision not to flag Warren's out-of-state murder charge during bail hearings raised alarms about communication breakdowns between jurisdictions. The case exposed flaws in how courts assess danger and the lack of coordination in tracking violent offenders across state lines. Warren was formally charged with first-degree aggravated murder for killing Meshay, second-degree murder for the death of Layla, and first-degree child molestation due to the evidence of sexual assault on Layla's body. The charges were supported by forensic evidence, including DNA, cell phone tracking, and witness testimony. Rather than proceeding to trial, Warren entered a plea deal in October 2024. He pleaded guilty to both murder charges. For the molestation charge, he entered an Alford plea, a legal mechanism in which the defendant maintains innocence but admits that the evidence would likely result in conviction. Under this agreement, Warren was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors emphasized that the plea deal spared the surviving family members from reliving the trauma through trial proceedings. However, the decision also meant that the case would not go before a jury, and certain details, particularly surrounding the molestation and Warren's intent, would never be publicly scrutinized in open court. At the time of his arrest in Washington, Warren had an active pending murder charge in Arkansas. Details of the case remain sealed due to ongoing legal processes in that state, but the existence of such a serious accusation raised immediate questions about how he was allowed to post bail. Warren also had a documented history of violence against women, including prior restraining orders and reports of threats and coercion. He had violated court orders multiple times, including shortly before the murders of Meshay and Layla. Despite being classified as a high-risk offender, Warren was treated as a standard pretrial defendant. No mechanisms flagged his risk profile with enough urgency to prevent his release. Analysts later revealed that prosecutors failed to conduct a thorough background check and did not communicate with Arkansas officials about the pending murder charge. These gaps allowed a dangerous individual to slip through the cracks. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the Vancouver community held multiple vigils to honor Meshay and Layla. Candles, photos, and signs filled the sidewalks in Clark County as hundreds gathered to grieve and demand change. The public's response extended beyond mourning. Multiple online petitions called for legislative reform to Washington's pretrial release policies, particularly in domestic violence and sexual assault cases. Activists and citizens alike urged the state to enforce mandatory GPS monitoring for high-risk defendants and make lethality assessments legally binding during bail hearings. The incident also sparked a broader domestic violence awareness campaign. Organizations across Clark County launched outreach programs to educate survivors about their rights and the resources available to them. Workshops, training events, and town hall discussions were held to review how local agencies handle high-risk domestic violence cases. Lawmakers were forced to address the growing pressure. By late 2024, some members of the Washington state legislature proposed bills that would require real-time alerts for judges when a defendant has out-of-state felony charges. Others push for standardized guidelines for enforcing no-contact orders and stronger consequences for violations prior to trial. Critics also raise concerns about the use of lethality risk assessments. Though the tool exists to quantify danger, there is no mandate on how courts must act when a defendant scores dangerously high. The case of Warren, who scored nearly twice the tool's maximum rating, exemplified how dangerous individuals can bypass enforcement due to legal loopholes and judicial discretion. The deaths of Meshay and Layla were not only horrific, they were entirely preventable. As public outrage grew, the case gained national attention, sparking conversations around systemic flaws in how domestic violence cases are handled in the United States. After the gruesome discovery, the Melendez-Stewart case quickly moved beyond local headlines. National news organizations, including CNN, NBC News, ABC, and the Washington Post, picked up the story. Reports focused not only on the timeline of the murders, but also on judicial decisions leading up to the killings. The case was widely compared to other high-profile domestic violence failures, such as the murders of Gabby Petito, Cassandra Sweeney, and Kiara Benefield, all women who had reported abuse or were under protective orders before being killed by partners. Analysts drew parallels between these cases, noting a recurring pattern of courts underestimating or ignoring documented threats. True crime podcasts like Crime Junkie, Case File, and Something Was Wrong feature the case in dedicated episodes. These programs dissected legal failures, explored Warren's background, and highlighted interviews from Meshay's family, emphasizing the preventable nature of the crimes. Advocacy groups, such as the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, NCAV, and YWCA USA, began referencing the Melendez-Stewart case in policy briefs. Their goal: to push for federal reform, specifically regarding lethality assessments, enforcement and protection orders, and mandatory pretrial supervision for high-risk offenders. The widespread coverage transformed the tragedy into a case study of systemic failure, not just a man's violence, but a court system that failed to stop him. Meshay had been granted a no-contact order against Warren following multiple documented threats and an assault that occurred months prior. However, Warren violated the order just days after being released on bail. Despite this, he was not rearrested or held accountable for the violation. This case illustrates how protection orders without enforcement mechanisms become meaningless. Courts issued paperwork, but failed to enforce consequences. Domestic violence professionals use lethality assessment tools to determine risk levels. Warren scored a 31 on a scale that only goes to 18. The score indicated an extremely high probability of severe or fatal violence. Despite this warning, he was released without a GPS monitor and without pretrial oversight. Ignoring objective risk data cost 2 lives. Single mothers in abusive relationships often face unique risks, emotional, financial, and physical. Meshay, like many, tried to navigate safety while raising a child alone. She sought help. She filed complaints. She got a restraining order. Still, her vulnerability was not met with protection. Instead, the system placed her in harm's way by returning her abuser to the streets. Judges have wide discretion in bail and pretrial release decisions. In this case, discretion overruled evidence. Despite a pending murder charge in another state, a documented assault, illegal firearm use, and multiple restraining order violations, Warren was deemed eligible for release twice. This case raises questions about whether certain offenses should override judicial discretion entirely, especially when public safety is clearly at risk. At the time of his release in Washington, Warren had a pending murder case in Arkansas. This information was not fully considered in bail hearings. Critics argue that interstate communication between judicial systems is inconsistent, allowing dangerous individuals to move across state lines with little oversight. In Warren's case, this gap helped him evade stricter detention measures. To push the conversation further, viewers and policymakers alike must consider: should individuals with pending murder charges ever be eligible for bail? Warren's Arkansas murder case was still active. Should that alone have barred his release in Washington? Do you think lethality risk scores should be legally binding in pretrial release decisions? A score of 31 out of 18 indicated extreme risk. Should courts be required to honor these assessments? How many times do warning signs need to appear before authorities act? Warren had multiple documented incidents. Should a cumulative pattern mandate automatic detention? What legal reforms would prevent this from happening to other mothers and children? Are laws needed to mandate electronic monitoring for all high-risk DV offenders upon release? Should judges and prosecutors be held accountable for releasing known violent offenders? In this case, did the judicial system play an indirect role in the deaths of Meshay and Layla? Is the criminal justice system equipped to handle high-risk domestic violence cases? What training, oversight, or structural changes are required to prevent another case like this? If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. How does a woman with over 40,000 followers vanish into a pool of blood just blocks from her home while riding in a hired Uber SUV? Was this a random act of violence or a carefully calculated execution? What secrets did Teisha Brewley carry? Secrets that may have followed her into the night. She was ambushed in one of Atlanta's wealthiest districts. In the early morning hours of May 30th, 2023, a black Cadillac Escalade Uber slowed to a stop near Lindbergh Drive in Buckhead, Atlanta's upscale nightlife district. Seconds later, over 40 bullets tore through the vehicle.
Atlanta 911, operator 310. What's the address of your emergency?
I don't know. I'm in the road. Somebody shot us.
Okay.
Yeah? Yeah?
Where are you?
I don't know where I am.
Hello, sir. I need to know
I don't know where.
I need to know what street you're on.
Inside, 31-year-old Teisha Brewley, better known online as Tavi Batty, was found unresponsive in the backseat. The Uber driver was unharmed. No suspects were arrested. No weapon was recovered. No motive was confirmed.
Tonight in Atlanta, there is a candlelight vigil for the social influencer shot and killed in an Uber. The vigil is set to begin at 8:30 at Allure on Cheshire Bridge Road. Is for Teisha Brewley, a Guyanese influencer known by the name Tavi Batty. Brulee died early Tuesday morning in Buckhead after police say gunmen targeted her Uber. Tonight, police are still searching for those shooters, but if you have any information that can help, you're asked to please contact Crime Stopper.
Teisha Brewley wasn't just another passenger. She was a rising Instagram influencer with over 40,000 followers, a presence on TikTok, and a growing subscriber base on adult content platforms. She had just left a local strip club where she worked and entered the Uber less than 15 minutes before her execution. Surveillance footage showed at least 2 vehicles tailing the car before the ambush. Police quickly ruled the shooting as targeted. This was not a robbery. This was not a random act of violence. This was an orchestrated hit, carried out just blocks from her home. The question isn't just who did it. It's who wanted her gone and why. In this investigation, we break down her final hours, trace her digital footprint, analyze the ballistic evidence, examine potential suspects, and ask one key question. What was happening behind the scenes of her growing online fame? Was she being watched? Was she being warned? And what do the cryptic posts she made in the days before her death really mean? This is not just a story about murder. It's about visibility, surveillance, and silence. And the deeper we go, the more the facts reveal themselves, and the silence starts to fracture. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's begin. Teisha Brewley, known online as Tavi Batty, was a 31-year-old woman who had developed a multifaceted presence in Atlanta's social, digital, and nightlife spaces. Her death in a targeted shooting in Buckhead on May 30th, 2023, gained immediate attention due to her prominence on social media and her public-facing lifestyle. However, long before her name made headlines, Brulee had built a reputation across various platforms and industries that blended entertainment, influence, and ambition. Teisha Brewley was born in Guyana, a South American country on the Atlantic coast, but was raised in the U.S. state of Georgia. Her upbringing was rooted in a mix of Caribbean heritage and American urban culture. That duality would later shape her content aesthetics and brand identity across the digital platforms where she eventually gained traction. She was part of a new generation of influencers who created and monetized personas online through a combination of curated lifestyle content, brand promotion, exclusive media, and consistent audience interaction. On Instagram, where she branded herself as Tabby Baddie, Brulee had accumulated more than 40,000 followers. Her feed was a collage of professional photo shoots, dance videos, sponsored content, and personal glimpses into her nightlife and fashion-forward lifestyle. Her image was highly stylized, glamorous, unapologetically confident, and focused on visibility. She also had accounts on TikTok and OnlyFans, where she expanded her audience and diversified her income streams through platform-specific content. On TikTok, she posted short-form videos featuring dance routines, comedy voiceovers, and behind-the-scenes looks at her life in Atlanta. On OnlyFans, she reportedly provided premium, adult-themed content to paying subscribers, which have become a common route for modern influencers looking to convert followers into direct revenue. Before her influencer status, Brulee had a background in modeling and dancing. She had worked with local photographers, stylists, and entertainment managers to promote products and events. Her offline persona was closely tied to Atlanta's nightlife industry, particularly through her work at Allure Atlanta, one of the city's high-profile gentlemen's clubs. According to coworkers, Brulee was considered reliable, professional, and well-liked by regulars. Her position at Allure gave her proximity to high-profile clients and fellow influencers, expanding her network and visibility. The club also acted as a setting for many of her photos and Instagram stories, making it both a source of income and brand relevance. Over time, Brulee expressed an interest in transitioning from influencer to entertainer. In 2023, she began exploring a career in dancehall music. She posted snippets of studio sessions and teaser clips of unreleased songs, and she hinted in captions that she planned to launch a music video campaign. This pivot was strategic, an attempt to capitalize on her audience while entering the competitive field of music with a built-in fan base. It also signaled her attempt to expand her influence beyond social media and the nightlife circuit. Brulee had also become known for her cautious behavior in recent months, especially regarding transportation and public appearances. Sources close to her mentioned that she frequently used Uber or other private rideshare services rather than driving herself. This behavior was attributed to past incidents involving unwanted attention, including what was described by friends as stalker-type behavior from certain individuals. She reportedly stopped sharing her real-time location on Instagram and moved more discreetly when traveling around the city. Her decision to reside in Buckhead, an affluent and heavily policed area in Atlanta, was part of this shift. She believed that being closer to high-end neighborhoods and business centers would offer her more personal security and more strategic networking opportunities in entertainment. Despite this awareness and cautious approach, Brulee remained publicly active. She often posts about her daily movements, events, and appearances, which may have inadvertently exposed her patterns to the wrong audience. Her rise in visibility had also generated controversy and jealousy from anonymous online users, some of whom left threatening or critical comments. Nevertheless, Brulee continued to grow her brand and interact with followers regularly. Her posts, while often playful or promotional, sometimes alluded to trust issues or paranoia, though these were never elaborated on in public statements. In the early morning hours of May 30th, 2023, 31-year-old social media personality Teisha Brewley, also known by her Instagram alias Tabby Baddie, was shot and killed while riding in an Uber SUV in Atlanta, Georgia. The following is a chronological reconstruction of her last 24 hours based on publicly available surveillance footage, social media activity, police statements, and digital evidence. Teisha Brewley arrived at Allure Atlanta, a prominent adult nightclub located in the Buckhead area, where she worked as a performer and social media ambassador. According to employee shift logs and eyewitness reports, she entered through the staff entrance and was scheduled to appear on stage during the late-night hours. Throughout the evening, she interacted with coworkers, promoted her OnlyFans account on Instagram, and reposted several customer tags to her Instagram story. Her mood appeared neutral, and there were no signs of conflict during her shift. Between midnight and 3 a.m., Brulee remained inside the club premises. She was seen on surveillance cameras taking selfies, speaking to the DJ, and exchanging brief words with customers near the VIP section. There were no physical altercations or arguments reported. Security footage confirms that Brulee was not being followed or harassed during her time inside the venue. At approximately 3:15 a.m., Tisha posted her final Instagram story, a short clip showing her leaving the club in heels and a form-fitting black outfit. She did not appear to be with anyone else at that time. No accompanying caption was posted, but geolocation tags placed her at the Allure Atlanta parking lot. At 3:25 a.m., according to Uber trip data and driver testimony, Brulee entered a black Cadillac Escalade SUV she had summoned via the Uber app. The ride was intended to take her home, a distance of less than 2 miles. The driver, a 42-year-old male with no criminal history, reported that Brulee sat in the rear passenger seat and gave no indication of distress. The vehicle pulled away from the club without incident. There were no known passengers besides Brulee. Just 5 minutes into the trip, 2 separate vehicles, a dark-colored Dodge Charger and a silver Nissan Altima, were seen following the Escalade. Surveillance from traffic cameras at intersections between Piedmont Road Northeast and Lindbergh Drive confirmed both vehicles appeared shortly after the Uber left Allure. License plate data has not been released to the public. At no point does the Uber driver report evasive maneuvers or awareness of being followed. At 3:41 a.m., 16 minutes into the trip, gunfire erupted as the Uber approached the intersection of Lindbergh Drive Northeast and Adina Drive NE, less than a mile from Brulee's registered residence. According to the Uber driver statement, the silver Nissan Altima pulled alongside the Escalade on the right, while the Dodge Charger advanced on the left. Within seconds, gunmen from both vehicles opened fire. Witnesses in nearby apartment complexes reported hearing approximately 40 rounds discharged. Bullet trajectory analysis later confirmed shots were fired from outside the vehicle and directed specifically toward the backseat passenger area, where Brulee was seated. The Uber driver immediately pulled over to the curb, placed the vehicle in park, and called 911. According to the emergency call transcript, he stated, "My rider's been shot. I'm in Buckhead. She's in the back. She's not moving." The driver remained on the scene until law enforcement and paramedics arrived. He was not injured and complied with all instructions. No weapons were found in the vehicle, and there was no sign of return fire from within. Atlanta Fire and EMS arrived at the scene within minutes. Brulee was removed from the SUV and examined for vital signs. She was officially declared deceased at 3:48 a.m., approximately 7 minutes after the first shots were fired. The body was transported to the Fulton County Medical Examiner's office for autopsy. The immediate determination: death by multiple gunshot wounds. Within hours, investigators secured surveillance footage from businesses along the Uber's route. Police confirmed the shooting was a targeted ambush. Neither the Uber driver nor Brulee's employer reported any prior threats. No arrests have been made. As of today, the suspects and vehicles remain unidentified. Who was tracking Teisha Brewley that night? Why did the attackers wait until that exact intersection to strike? Was the Uber route monitored in real time? Did Tisha know her killers? The 16-minute ride ended in an execution-style killing that remains unsolved. In the days leading up to her death, Teisha Brewley, known on Instagram as Tabby Baddie, remained highly active on social media. Her final public post was an Instagram story timestamped at 3:15 a.m. on May 30th, 2023, showing her leaving Allure Atlanta, the club where she worked. She appeared alone, entering a black Cadillac Escalade believed to be her Uber ride. The story was geotagged near the Lindbergh area of Buckhead, one of Atlanta's most affluent districts. That location would later become the crime scene. Her last 3 Instagram photo uploads showed her in the same outfit as the night she was killed. The post had received over 6,000 likes and hundreds of comments, some supportive, others vague and confrontational. A review of the comments section reveals multiple remarks from unknown accounts saying things like, "Watch your back," "Atlanta is small," and "Some people ain't who they pretend to be." These accounts were created within the month of May, used only to post threats or ambiguous comments under Tisha's posts, then deleted shortly after. Her Twitter timeline, since taken down by family, included a cryptic tweet posted 3 days before the murder. "You never know who's watching you." And I mean that in every way. No further context was offered. This post has been widely interpreted as a signal that Brulee was aware of being monitored digitally or physically. Direct messages from her Instagram, according to sources close to the investigation, included a series of unread messages from fake profiles offering business deals that later turned into aggressive personal language. In some DMs, individuals used specific locations she had visited, suggesting they had tracked her via location tags. Tisha was known to use geotags frequently in her content, rarely delaying her location updates. Experts point to this as a potential mistake, allowing someone to track her movements in real time. Additionally, Brulee had a long-standing pattern of public disagreements with at least 2 known influencers in Atlanta's nightlife and entertainment scenes. Archived Instagram Live videos show verbal confrontations and vague accusations of clout chasing, stealing clients, and moving funny. While these digital spats appear harmless on the surface, investigators are reviewing them for possible motives or connections to her murder. No official evidence has yet confirmed whether Tisha filed any formal complaints regarding stalking or digital harassment. However, people close to her confirmed she had mentioned creepy DMs and even considered turning off her location tags, something she never did. The digital footprint left behind suggests calculated targeting. Unknown accounts with little to no digital identity, direct threats, vague warnings, and location tag usage all point to a pattern of cyberstalking. The timeline indicates the attackers may have known exactly when and where she would be during her final ride. The Uber driver, whose identity has been kept private for security reasons, played a critical role in reconstructing the timeline of the attack. According to a statement to Atlanta police, he picked up Tisha from the Allure Atlanta location at approximately 3:25 a.m. Surveillance footage from the club confirms this pickup. The route map shows a vehicle heading northbound to Buckhead, following a standard rideshare route. GPS data retrieved from Uber's system confirms no unexpected detours were taken. Approximately 2 minutes into the ride, the driver noticed a gray Dodge Charger and a black SUV following closely behind. He reportedly mentioned the suspicious behavior to Tisha, but she dismissed it. Within 5 minutes of departure, just as the vehicle turned onto Adina Drive, gunfire erupted. Dash cam footage, now part of the ongoing investigation, reveals the 2 trailing vehicles boxed in the Escalade. Shots were fired from both the driver and passenger sides of the attackers' cars. Over 40 shell casings were later recovered at the scene, indicating the use of at least 2 different firearms. The bullet trajectories suggest precision, targeting only the rear passenger section where Tisha sat. Remarkably, the Uber driver was not injured. Analysis of the SUV confirms that the front seat and driver's side were untouched. Law enforcement interprets this as a sign the attackers deliberately avoided harming the driver, likely to reduce attention or avoid additional charges. The focus was entirely on Teisha Brewley. The driver's clean record and cooperative behavior during the investigation rule him out as a suspect. His dash cam provided critical visual data, including brief glimpses of the suspect's vehicle plates, which were either tampered with or unreadable. At this point, law enforcement believed the killers were familiar with Tisha's routine. Whether through social media tracking, direct surveillance, or tips from someone close to her, the attackers appeared to know her exact movements, timing, and seating position inside the vehicle. The Uber driver told authorities, "They weren't trying to rob us. They didn't want me. They only came for her." That testimony supports the working theory that the murder was a premeditated hit, not random violence. Following the discovery of Teisha Brewley's body in the back seat of an Uber SUV on May 30th, 2023, the Fulton County Medical Examiner conducted a full autopsy. The report confirmed that the cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. The fatal shots were concentrated in the upper torso, with additional wounds located in her arms, abdomen, and legs. A total of 9 bullets struck the victim. None of the bullets were fired from within the vehicle, confirming that all shots came from external sources. Forensic ballistic experts recovered more than 40 shell casings from the crime scene, scattered across Lindbergh Drive and Adena Drive in Atlanta's Buckhead neighborhood. The casings came from at least 2 different firearms, confirmed through caliber analysis and casing patterns. One set of shell casings came from a 9mm handgun. The second set matched the discharge of a .40 caliber pistol. This directly indicates the involvement of at least 2 shooters, possibly positioned in separate vehicles or firing from different angles. Further ballistic analysis on the Uber SUV revealed that the passenger side and rear panels sustained the most damage. The concentration of bullet holes in the rear driver's side window and tailgate confirmed that the gunfire was intentionally aimed at the back seat, the exact position where Tisha was seated. Investigators concluded that she was the sole intended target. The driver was not hit by any bullet, and the front of the vehicle showed minimal damage. The autopsy found no defensive wounds, no injuries on her hands or forearms, and no sign of struggle inside the SUV. There were no foreign DNA traces under her fingernails. Toxicology results showed no drugs or alcohol in her system. This indicates that the attack was swift, premeditated, and designed for execution, not confrontation. With the ballistic evidence pointing to a planned ambush, investigators began constructing a profile of possible suspects. Teisha Brewley, known online as Tavi Batty, was connected to a wide network of individuals through her online presence, nightclub affiliations, and personal relationships. One of the first avenues explored by law enforcement was her known associates, particularly within the nightlife industry. She had worked at Allure Atlanta, a high-profile gentlemen's club, for over a year. Several employees reported that she had recently distanced herself from co-workers and stopped sharing her location publicly. Further scrutiny was placed on her digital activity. In the weeks before her death, Tisha made several cryptic posts on her Instagram stories and TikTok account. These included phrases like, "Not everyone who smiles at you is a friend," and "You never know who's watching." She also posted less frequently and removed location tags from her photos. These behavioral changes suggested growing paranoia or awareness of being followed. Investigators also looked into her romantic connections. Tisha was previously linked to a local entrepreneur who owned multiple luxury cars and reportedly had ties to known gang members. That individual had not been seen with her in over 2 months, but several anonymous tips suggested the breakup had been acrimonious. The theory of romantic jealousy or retaliation was noted but not confirmed. No restraining orders were on file, and no domestic complaints had been officially documented. In addition, there were reports of brewing tensions with other influencers and OnlyFans creators who operated in the same niche as Tisha. Though there was no direct evidence of threats or conflict, investigators reviewed online exchanges where Tisha responded to subtle provocations and competition-related posts. This raised the possibility of influencer rivalry leading to real-world consequences. Gang-related involvement was not ruled out. While Tisha had no criminal record and was not identified as a gang member, she may have unknowingly been involved with individuals affiliated with street-level organizations. Her upscale lifestyle, online flaunting of cash, and connection to individuals with known criminal histories were considered potential motives for targeting, either as punishment, intimidation, or financial warning. Police reports from the previous year revealed that Tisha had filed a single incident report about being followed home by an unknown vehicle. The report was dated November 2022 and indicated she was concerned about being watched. She had requested extra patrols in her neighborhood but declined to press charges or provide a suspect name. The lack of follow-up left the case inactive. Taken together, the autopsy and ballistic findings prove this was not a random shooting. The level of coordination, use of multiple firearms, and targeting of the back seat suggests planning, surveillance, and intent. The suspect profile is broad, ranging from romantic fallout, professional jealousy, to associations with criminal elements in Atlanta's nightlife scene. The investigation remains open, with law enforcement still analyzing digital records, communications, and camera footage for further leads. In the days following the murder of Teisha Brewley, known online as Tavi Batty, the community response was immediate and highly visible. A candlelight vigil was held outside Allure Atlanta, the strip club where Tisha had worked, located in the same nightlife district where her life ended in a targeted shooting. The vigil took place 3 days after her death, organized by coworkers, close friends, and local activists. The event was publicly shared across social media platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Flyers encourage attendees to wear white and pink, Tisha's preferred colors, symbolizing purity and femininity, which were often emphasized in her online branding. During the vigil, balloons were released and candles formed the initials TB on the sidewalk in front of the venue. Several community members shared stories of her work ethic, social media presence, and aspirations to transition from nightlife to a full-time music career. There was no organized police presence at the vigil, but private security was observed. The event remained peaceful and attracted a mixed crowd of fellow entertainers, local business owners, and digital fans. Family members from both Atlanta and Guyana delivered prepared statements, some read aloud by community leaders. Tisha's mother, currently residing in Georgia, stated that her daughter was trying to get out of the industry and had plans to launch her music officially this year. Her uncle, speaking on behalf of relatives in Guyana, expressed concern about the safety of young women in the diaspora who pursue social visibility as a path to financial independence. Simultaneously, online support began to mobilize. A GoFundMe campaign titled Justice for Tavi was launched within 48 hours of the shooting. The campaign aimed to cover funeral costs, legal assistance, and private investigative support if needed. The initial target was $20,000. As of 2 weeks after her death, it had surpassed $33,000. Thousands of comments on the fundraiser page include screenshots of Tisha's content, digital condolences, and hashtags like hashtag Justice for Tavi, hashtag Protect Women in Nightlife, and hashtag Atlanta Ambush. The emotional toll of Tisha's death extended beyond her family. Numerous women in the nightlife and entertainment industries, particularly those operating in Atlanta, Houston, and Miami, began speaking out on platforms like Twitter and TikTok about stalking, harassment, and lack of security. Several dancers, influencers, and sex workers shared posts highlighting how targeted violence often goes unsolved or underreported. Some creators temporarily deactivated their accounts following online threats and increased scrutiny. The case triggered an influx of videos and threads with titles like, "It could have been me," and "They're watching us too." As of the latest update, the Atlanta Police Department has confirmed that the homicide investigation remains active and open. Police have publicly described the incident as a targeted ambush. Over 40 shell casings were recovered at the scene near Lindbergh Drive and Adina Drive. The Uber vehicle in which Brulee was traveling, a black Cadillac Escalade, was confirmed to have been legally operating through a rideshare app at the time of the shooting. The driver was not injured and has fully cooperated with investigators. Police have encouraged members of the public to submit any tips through Crime Stoppers by calling 404-577, TIPS 8477, or by submitting tips anonymously online. They have also made a direct appeal to residents and businesses in the Buckhead area to check their security camera footage, especially between 3:15 a.m. and 4 a.m. on the morning of May 30th. They are particularly interested in footage that may have captured 2 unidentified vehicles tailing the Escalade before the attack. Despite the high-profile nature of the killing, no suspect have been arrested, and law enforcement has not released vehicle descriptions or potential suspect names. Authorities have neither confirmed nor denied the involvement of the FBI or any federal agency, but internal sources indicate that the scale and execution of the ambush are being analyzed for organized elements. Public response to the case online continues to grow. Multiple social media campaigns have emerged demanding updates and transparency. On TikTok, the hashtag #WhoKilledTavi has been viewed over 1.8 million times, with users sharing location theories, dashcam videos from nearby Uber drivers, and side-by-side comparisons of known associates. Some creators have produced map visualizations showing the route from Allure Atlanta to the crime scene, raising questions about the short distance traveled and whether the shooter had prior knowledge of her exact location. The primary unanswered questions include: who were the occupants of the two vehicles that followed Tisha's Uber? Was there a tracking device involved? Did Tisha report any threats prior to her death? Are there any known persons of interest being investigated discreetly? Authorities maintain that the case is progressing, but no timeline for arrests or major updates has been announced. The Atlanta Police Department's latest public statement emphasizes that anyone with verifiable information, no matter how small, is urged to come forward. The case remains under review, with increasing public scrutiny and pressure on law enforcement to deliver a resolution. The facts are clear. Teisha Brewley, also known as Tavi Batty, was shot dead inside an Uber SUV just minutes after leaving work. The killing was not random. Police confirmed she was the intended target, but that leaves behind a list of unanswered questions that go beyond the surface. Was Tisha being watched long before the shooting? Surveillance footage shows two vehicles following her from a club. That level of precision doesn't happen by chance. Whoever killed her knew her movements, vehicle choice, and timing. Was someone keeping tabs on her social media stories? Did someone track her ride history? Was she sharing real-time updates online that revealed too much about her location? Who gains from her silence? Tisha had over 40,000 followers. She was building a brand. She was preparing to release music. She had influence and access. If she had secrets or damaging information about certain individuals, her silence might have been valuable to someone. Was there a motive rooted in reputation protection, revenge, or fear of exposure? Silence can benefit those who fear what might be said next. Did the killers know her personally? The nature of the shooting, an ambush involving two separate vehicles, suggests planning and intent. It doesn't resemble a robbery or carjacking. This raises a question. Was it personal? Did she fall out with someone in her inner circle? Did she offend a romantic partner, a business associate, or a rival in the influencer world? Police have not disclosed any suspects or persons of interest, but such execution-style attacks often suggest personal involvement. What do you think was the real motive behind this ambush? Tisha was involved in multiple industries: nightlife, modeling, adult content, and music. Any of these spaces can come with competition, tension, and risk. Was this about money, status, betrayal, or control? Tisha had made recent cryptic posts on Instagram, suggesting anxiety or awareness of being watched. What was happening behind the filters, the hashtags, and the curated content? Was there someone in the background, quiet, calculating, and angry? If you had access to her DMs, what would you be looking for? The truth might sit in her direct messages. Instagram DMs, OnlyFans messages, TikTok comments. Who was contacting her privately? Who was threatening her, if anyone? Were there conversations about debt, protection, blackmail, or jealousy? Her messages might hold details about unknown threats, unresolved conflicts, or people she feared. If this was a crime rooted in personal betrayal, the trail likely exists in her digital history. Could this have been prevented? That's the final and most critical question. Could Tisha's murder have been avoided? Did she try to report someone in the past? Were there warning signs missed by friends, followers, or even herself? Should she have stopped tagging her location in real time? Should her Uber driver have taken a different route? Should security at the club have noticed suspicious individuals waiting outside? It's easy to question after the fact, but the patterns before the crime matter. If similar patterns appear again with others, will we notice? Teisha Brewley's death is not just a one-night tragedy. It's a case study in modern vulnerability at the intersection of fame, technology, and risk. She had visibility. She had followers. She had influence. But with influence comes exposure. In today's digital culture, online fame can be a double-edged sword. The same followers who like and share your content may also include silent watchers, those who monitor movements, study behavior, and blur the line between fandom and fixation. The more visible a person becomes, the more they attract interest from both admirers and predators. The risks are amplified for women working in nightlife and digital entertainment. The promise of attention, brand deals, and fast success often comes with unwanted attention, cyberstalking, doxing, and in rare cases, physical violence. The question remains, How many other women face similar dangers every day but don't make headlines? Tisha's story should serve as a warning, not to silence women, but to examine the structures around them. What safety protocols are in place for public figures who feel threatened? What systems exist to track and prevent repeat harassment? Are influencers taught digital safety the same way they're taught marketing strategies? Finally, the line between admiration and obsession is thinner than we often admit. In Tisha's case, that line was crossed violently and irreversibly. Her rising star was extinguished before her light fully shone, leaving behind a digital legacy, grieving family, and a city still asking why. You've heard the facts. You've seen the timeline. Now ask yourself, what really happened to Teisha Brewley, and who still needs an answer for it?